Donald Trump just called a television network in the middle of a war. Not to announce a ceasefire, not to declare a strategic breakthrough, but to whisper sweet nothings into the ears of panicking stock traders. One phone call, one vague statement about how the Iran war is pretty much complete. And just like that, the S&P erased its losses for the day. Oil prices that had been screaming toward $115 a barrel suddenly dropped 30%. Two realities running on the same clock. On one side, the Secretary of Defense is telling 60 Minutes that this war is only just the beginning. On the other, the President of the United States is telling CBS it is pretty much done. One government, two completely opposite messages, and behind both of them, a phone call with Vladimir Putin that should make every single person watching this deeply uncomfortable. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what just happened, why the administration's own words expose contradictions they cannot hide, and why the geopolitical ground beneath your feet shifted today in ways most people have not yet processed. Imagine you hired a contractor to renovate your house. He tells you the job will take 5 weeks. 6 days in, he calls you and says, pretty much done. But when you call his foreman, the foreman says, we have only just begun. Meanwhile, the contractor has been on the phone with your neighbor, the one who has been undercutting your business for years. And that neighbor is now publicly announcing that he is going to help the contractor figure out a solution. How confident are you feeling about that renovation? Hold that thought, because that is exactly what happened today. Drop your answer in the comments. How many contradictions does it take before you stop calling it strategy and start calling it chaos? Let us rewind the clock to understand how we arrived at this extraordinary moment. When the United States launched its military campaign against Iran, the stated objectives were sweeping: eliminate the regime, destroy Iran's nuclear enrichment capabilities, neutralize its ballistic missile threat, dismantle its ability to project power through proxy forces. The timeline, according to administration officials, was an estimated 4 to 5 weeks. The language was muscular, absolute, unambiguous. This was supposed to be the demonstration of overwhelming American power that would reshape the Middle East. 6 days in, reality started writing its own script. Iran's navy took significant damage. Communications infrastructure was degraded. The Air Force was hit hard. But Iran did not collapse. The regime did not fold. Instead, leadership transferred not to a moderate reformer, not to a Western-aligned figure, but to Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the former supreme leader, a man widely regarded as even more extreme than his father. The very thing the war was supposed to prevent, the entrenchment of hardline theocratic power, happened in the first week. And then Trump picked up the phone. Receipt number 1, the CBS phone call. Roughly an hour before markets closed on a brutal trading day, Donald Trump called CBS and spoke with a reporter. His message was carefully calibrated, not for military audiences, not for diplomatic channels, but for Wall Street. He said the Iran war is pretty much complete. He said Iran has no navy, no communications, no air force. He said the United States is far ahead of its initial time frame. And predictably, the markets responded. The S&P erased its losses. Oil prices fell sharply from their highs near $115 a barrel. As one analyst put it plainly, we all understand that Trump called so he could deliver a vague but promising comment in the afternoon to make the markets rally and erase the day's drop. The war was not over. The objectives had not been met. But the stock tickers needed a story, and Trump gave them one. That is not strategy. That is market manipulation wearing a commander-in-chief's uniform. Receipt number 2, the Putin phone call. Before Trump declared quasi-victory on CBS, he spoke with Vladimir Putin. And what happened next should alarm everyone paying attention. Putin, according to the Kremlin readout, which the Trump administration did not dispute, shared his proposal for how to end the war quickly. Putin was very quick to announce publicly that Donald called him and that the two of them would be working together to figure out a solution. Process that. The President of the United States, in the middle of a war, called the leader of a country that has been the single greatest beneficiary of that war. Surging oil prices created a financial windfall for Russia, especially after the Trump administration had already dropped critical sanctions, allowing Russia to sell oil freely. And after this phone call, reports emerged that the administration is considering removing even more sanctions, allowing Russia to sell even more oil to even more markets. Russia did not fire a single shot in this conflict. It did not need to. It is winning by watching. And Washington just invited Moscow to help write the ending. Receipt number 3, the Hegseth contradiction. On Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sat down with 60 Minutes and delivered a very different message from the one Trump would deliver days later. Hegseth said, and I want you to hear this clearly, what I want your viewers to understand is this is only just the beginning. He described 6 days of operations. He talked about more boats to be sunk, more targets to hit, more time needed to safeguard critical waterways. He called it early. Then just days later, the president told CBS the war is pretty much complete. But it goes further. The Department of Defense, which now officially calls itself the Department of War, posted a statement after Trump's CBS interview that read, "We have only just begun to fight. The president says it is done. The defense secretary says it has just started." The Pentagon says they have only just begun. That is not a communications gap. That is an administration at war with its own war. If this analysis is connecting dots you have not seen assembled in one place, you are already ahead of most people watching this unfold. Subscribe right now. This situation is evolving faster than any single outlet can track, and you need to be here when the next piece drops. Here is what makes this situation so structurally dangerous. There is no strategist in this equation. There is no figure quietly building networks, forging alliances, positioning for the long game. What you have instead is blunt force operating without coherent objectives, contradicting itself publicly within 72 hours, and calling adversaries for help. Consider what Iran's side looks like right now. Kamal Karazi, the foreign policy advisor to the Office of the Supreme Leader, went on international television and delivered the exact opposite of capitulation. He said Iran's military is quite strong. He said Iran produces its own weapons and is not dependent on any other country. He said this is an existential threat to the Islamic Republic, and therefore Iran will respond with full might. When asked directly whether Iran is seeking a ceasefire, his answer was unequivocal. I do not see any room for diplomacy anymore because Donald Trump has been deceived.